fat controller had sent Henry away to be mended, which meant more work for Edward, Gordon and James. They had to pull Henry's trains as well as their own. One of these is the special fish train called the Flying Kipper. Gordon and James did not like the Flying Kipper. "I don't know what's worse," complained James, "having to get up extra early or having to pull those smelly vans. Blech!" "It might be smelly, but it's still important," said Edward, "just like the express."
"Rubbish!" snorted Gordon. "The Kipper is nothing like the express."
"Yes, it is," said cheeky Percy. "The only difference is your passengers are fish. At least they don't complain whenever you're late." Gordon fumed as Percy chuckled away. The weather was bitterly cold. Snow and ice lay all around, and the winter wind chilled the engines to their frames. One evening, James was on his way to the shed when the inspector stopped him.
"Percy is busy in the yard. I need you to help with the shunting at the harbour, please."
James was cross.
"It's freezing down there. Can't it wait till tomorrow?"
"No, it can't. They need the vans for the Flying Kipper at the fish quay. There's a big freeze tonight, so you must shut the vans inside the goods shed. Hurry along now."
James grumbled dreadfully as he collected the fish vans. But he was so cross that he hadn't listened properly. He left the vans beside the goods shed and then steamed quickly back to his own shed to get warm. The vans shivered as they stood on the cold fish quay. Early the next morning, it was Gordon's turn to take the Kipper. He muttered crossly as he headed towards the harbour. The vans were already loaded when Gordon arrived. When everything was ready, the guard showed his green lamp.
"Come on, let's go! Come on, let's go!"
puffed Gordon.
"We won't go! We won't go!"
complained the vans.
"Yes, you will,"
ordered Gordon. Puffing hard, he dragged the screeching, groaning trucks out of the harbour and towards the main line. Now Gordon was very strong, but even he found it difficult. The train seemed heavier than usual, and the vans wouldn't stop complaining.
"Ugh, what a nuisance trucks are,"
he thought to himself. Then, at the junction, his driver saw the signalman waving a red lamp. They stopped outside the signal box. "What's the matter?" asked the driver.
"You've left your brakes on," called the signalman. "I can see sparks coming from your tracks."
The driver and fireman were puzzled. When they went to look, they got a big surprise.
"Oh, bother," said the fireman. "The axle boxes on the vans are frozen solid, and their wheels won't turn. No wonder they were difficult to pull."
They had to melt the ice so their wheels would turn properly. It took a long time indeed. At last, Gordon was on his way again, but he was very late, cold and cross. The fat controller was cross too. When he found out about James, he made him pull the Kipper for the rest of the week to teach him a lesson. Gordon was glad not to have that job for a while, but he knows now how important it is after all. And for once, he agreed with Percy about something.
"It's just as well the fish can't complain," he remarked. "This yard is loud enough already, with James and the trucks moaning and groaning together."
One day, Gordon's whistle valve had jammed. It had caused a lot of trouble, and the fat controller was not pleased. "This won't do at all, Gordon. Burst safety valves, jammed whistles. You must go to the works and have your worn parts mended. Henry shall take the express until you come back." Henry was pleased, but James was cross. "It's not fair," he complained. "Ever since Henry got his new shape, he gets the express all the time, and I end up stuck doing his other jobs." "Never mind, James," said his driver. "Just be patient. I'm sure you'll pull the express again one day." But James wanted the express now. As well as taking goods trains, James also had to pull the local. It's a passenger train that stops at every station along the line. He found it dreadfully boring. All he could do was watch the other engines rushing past. "I'm fed up with these slow trains," he grumbled. "They're so degrading." "No, they're not," put in Henry. "Slow trains are important too. I pulled lots of them before I got my new shape." "At least Henry is careful with his trains," teased Percy. "None of them needed to be mended with bootlaces." "Ha!" snapped James, and then sulked all night. He was still cross the next morning. His fire would not burn properly. "It must be the coal again," grumbled the fireman. "If we can't get his fire going, we'll be late collecting the local." James looked across the shed. He could see Henry getting ready for the express. And then he made a plan. The driver and fireman tried everything, but James deliberately dawdled. At last the inspector arrived. "Sure wheel, James. It's nearly time for your train." "Oh, I'm sorry, sir," groaned James. "I don't seem to have enough steam this morning." "Bother. Well, there's nothing for it then. Henry, you'll have to take the local for James. I need to find another engine for the express." Henry was annoyed, but he did as he was told. James smiled to himself. When Henry had gone, James suddenly let off steam. "What do you know? I'm feeling much better now. Shall I take the express, sir?" The fireman was surprised. The driver was suspicious. But the inspector agreed, and James bustled away. "I'm such a clever engine," he thought. "That's one in the headlamp for old Henry." When everyone was ready, James set off. He was looking forward to a fast run. But as he hurried along, he began to feel strange. "It must be the coal after all," complained the driver. "There still isn't enough steam." James tried hard, but by the time he reached Edward Station, he felt very stuffed up. His driver warned the signalman, and the fireman began clearing ashes from James's firebox. The passengers became impatient. "Will we ever start?" moaned James. At last he felt well enough to set off again, but he was late for the rest of the day. That night, James returned to the shed tired and unhappy. "Hello, James," said Henry. "You're back late. Still feeling poorly, are you?" "Either that or he forgot which train he was pulling," remarked Percy. "You did know you were taking the express and not the local, didn't you? Don't worry, maybe you'll remember next time." James said nothing. He had decided that even clever engines can still make mistakes.